Right, it looks like everybody is here. So thank you for joining the Enrolled Agent Career Panel discussion. This program is hosted by the National Association of Enrolled Agents and the NAEA Education Foundation, and it's designed to give you a taste of what it's like to be an enrolled agent. It's a profession that few know about, despite the fact that there are nearly 60,000 EAs in the workforce right now. And EAs are in high demand, especially as taxes continue to be more and more complex. Our panelists will talk more about that during the discussion. I'm Meg Killian, the Executive Vice President of NAEA. NAEA is the only association dedicated to the EA profession. We provide networking, education, advocacy, and connections for EAs across the US and abroad. The NAEA Education Foundation provides scholarships to help aspiring EAs cover the cost of the exam fees, as well as review courses to prepare for the special enrollment exam. We are going to be accepting scholarship applications in a few months, so stay tuned as we open our next round of scholarships. And more information will be found on our website in a couple months. So right now I would like to introduce our moderator, Catherine Bostock-Hootie, the chair of the Education Foundation, who will be today's moderator. Catherine?
Thank you very much, Meg. My name, as Meg has already told you, is Catherine Bostock-Hootie. I'm an enrolled agent. I have been an enrolled agent since 2005. Back when the exam was a 2-day 4-part exam done with pencil and paper, which is, seems like ancient history now. And I decided to become an enrolled agent because at that time they were talking about regulating tax return preparers, which we can go into more later. With us today, I'd like to introduce Donald Nelson, enrolled agent, and Chris Pistorino, I'm sure I messed that up, enrolled agent, and he's a newly minted enrolled agent. So we all have different perspectives on our decision making for the becoming enrolled agents and actually taking the exam. So Donald, can you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your background?
For sure. First, I appreciate you having me on here. We enjoy being a part of the NAEA community and association. And for me, myself, I've been a member since I think 2009. I'm a former IRS agent, worked for the IRS in Boise, Idaho from 2002 to 2005, then left and went out on my own, and now have a pretty successful practice full of EAs. As far as we know, it may be the largest EA practice that there is in the country. And we've got 2 partners and an awesome COO, and we run a pretty good firm, and yet we've managed to keep it as a feel for a mom and pop shop. I noticed when I was at the IRS with those that I audited, when they had a representative that came in, I found that versus CPAs, that EAs had a better feel for things because they were specialists rather than a general practitioner who were kind of stretched too thin. And so I went that route when I left the IRS. Rather than continuing on with my CPA, and it served me really, really well. I mean, obviously with the size of our firm and things, we have multiple locations, and anyway, so that's kind of my background. Our practice is fairly good size. We have about 5,500 to 6,000 returns that we'll do this year, and with a staff of about 10 EAs, and then we have accounting and payroll on the side. But anyway, thank you for letting me be a part of this today.
Chris, would you like to introduce yourself and give a little bit of your background?
Sure. Oh boy. First of all, I'm sick, so I apologize if I cough and sneeze while I'm talking. But I'm Chris Pistorino, and I just became an EA. I took the tests in the fall. Took them, I think, about a month apart from each other. And I just a few weeks ago got the notification in the mail. It took a while, but I am now, let's see if you guys can see this with the background. I am now, oh, it went away. There it is. An enrolled agent official.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I decided to go this route. I'm also going to be sitting for a CPA next year, or this year probably, but I'm kind of doing two things. I work for H&R Block, so I do taxes. I do a little bit of bookkeeping, but I also am an accountant at an engineering firm. So I feel like I can keep going with both and see just where it takes me. And I agree with Donald that the enrolled agent path seems a lot more specific and more of a specialty. So I'm kind of glad that I've done that first, and I'm sure it'll help me when if and when I sit for the CPA as well, because you know, a lot of the topics are covered there too. But right now I'm knee deep in taxes at H&R Block, and kind of looking forward to April 18th. But yeah, that's my background and the reason I pursued the enrolled agent status.
Well, as I started talking earlier, and Donald, since you've been a member since 2009, you can probably appreciate this. I would becoming an enrolled agent. It was my second career. My first career was I was a controller for a corporate manufacturing company prior to starting my own business. And as I started to say in my intro, there was a lot of talk about regulating tax return preparers. And I was very concerned about that because while I had sat for the CPA exam, I didn't pass. I passed 2 out of the 4 parts. I didn't pass the whole thing. And I was really concerned about the fact that I didn't have a credential, and if they actually regulated tax return preparers, that I might not be able to do what I was doing for a living. I thought that, you know, I needed to get out in front of this and actually be proactive and become an enrolled agent prior to them passing regulations. Again, I became an enrolled agent in 2005, when it was a 2-day 4-part exam, all done on pencil and paper. There was no computers involved, and you know, there was no online programs such as Gleim or the Surgeon program to help me study. It was all books and reviewing past exams. And while the regulation of tax return preparers has not yet come to fruition, you know, I think that the preparation of tax returns really should have some sort of regulation, because if you think about it, you know, the person that cuts your hair needs a license, but the person that prepares your tax return does not. So, you know, I think there should be some, this is my personal feeling, I think there should be some minimum competency for somebody that actually does prepare tax returns for compensation. So, you know, I'm glad I did it. I didn't actually continue pursuing the CPA for a couple of different reasons, but I found with the enrolled agent that I could serve the people that I wanted to serve, which are the mom and pops that Donald referred to. And I could do it cost effectively without doing the CPA exam. So while I don't discourage anybody's path to become a CPA, everybody's got to choose their own path and what's right for them. Chris, do you have any thoughts on that?
I've also been pondering, CPA, CMA. There's so many different credentials you could get. There's a chartered financial. There's so many different things. So as I was taking classes, I went back to school, and I'm going to be getting a master's in accounting in May, if nothing goes wrong. And I was wondering, how should I finish this off? Which credential should I get? So I don't know. I think the CPA is a good overall thing, and then that's like being a general practitioner or something, or a doctor that can handle many different things, and then focusing also in on some kind of specialty. And for tax, I feel that the enrolled agent is the specialty, and it makes you more of a more valuable commodity. I think you might find in your career. I'm hoping that it leads to me being able to say I'm a specialist at something, and maybe being able to be rewarded for that.
Now, Donald, I heard you say during your intro that you had the largest EA firm in the country. And so my sense is not only do you have a good story about why you became an EA, but it sounds like you encourage others to become an EA. Could you please share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's just hasn't been really presented as an option. Like as you go through college, high school, household name, you hear CPA. And I echo what Chris has said about that as well. Just when I look at a specialist, if I'm going to go talk to somebody and I want the best on my foot or my knee, I'm going to go to somebody who specializes, a podiatrist or that's my thoughts on it. So anyone that we bring into our fold as an intern or something else, when we hire them as an employee, we look first for fit, for personality. You can't teach personality or the ability to connect that people have, but you can teach a lot of people how to do taxes. Obviously, like you said, you have people who do it without any certification. And it's not really that difficult depending on your software things. But then as you extend and broaden your knowledge of it, you start to understand that, the boundaries to work within aren't here, they're actually out here. And inside those boundaries, what do you have room to play with? And what are your thresholds and what's the IRS process and those types of things. And the EA exam covers all those things. Obviously with our IRS background, we can give a little more knowledge into the why. But once people understand the why behind a rule, then they're off and running. And so we provide that training for them, help them get certified, and then they are off and running. So yeah.
We had a question in the chat box, which is asking for some advice for going through the test and actually taking the test. It was directed at Chris, but I think everyone can answer it since you've all taken the test before.
As in what order, maybe?
I'd say order, but also maybe how to study for it. And MD Raman, if you have any clarifying for that question, feel free to put it in the chat.
So when I started, there was a program through H&R Block that put us in through something called Fast Forward Academy. And that's just one of many programs that you can be a part of online. And they also, I joined a study group, which was very helpful. So the study group was also through H&R Block. And we got together weekly and talked about online, talked about what we were studying. Each module brought you through step by step. And the way we took it was part 3 first, representation, because that tended to be a little less data oriented, a little more general, maybe less intimidating to start off. I think that was the reasoning and thinking. So we studied for that one, took it, and then studied for individual next, and studied for that, took that, and then we took more time to study for the business section, because that was possibly a little more foreign to most people, because we were all tax preparers and doing mainly personal taxes. So we had a little bit more background in that. So we took some extra weeks to study for the business section. But always knowing that we needed to schedule our tests kind of at the beginning of the process, so that we didn't lose our seats. I live near Philadelphia, so it wasn't that hard to find a spot, but you know, people in the study group were all around the country, and some places that were more rural, you know, they had to drive like 2 hours to take the test. So it was more of a big deal to make sure that they got their seat. But I think that the order that we did it in was good. Like I know there's all kinds of ways of thinking about it. Sometimes you might say, let me get the hardest part done first, and then I'll feel good and relieved, and my other ones will go more smoothly. But I kind of like the easing into it concept. So the representation first, and then we did personal, and then we did business, and studying for each one before we took it. And then like clean slate, I'm not going to think about representation anymore. I'm just going to think about personal. Just study that. And then again, clean slate, I'm just going to think about business. And so you're don't get overloaded. I would definitely seek out, I know that NAEA has some connections with 1 or 2 of the online classes. You guys can maybe speak to that. I think hooking up with one of those is a great way to do it, because they'll take you through step by step, and you won't feel overloaded.
Donald, do you have any comments?
I would say that the online testing that can be done, the quizzes are the key. That's what we tell everybody here in our firm as well. Is studying is one thing, but practicing taking a test, the quizzes that you can do with the materials that are out there, take those over and over again, because most software nowadays too has kind of a learning curve. It'll build in what do you struggle with, what do you do well with, and it'll tailor your quizzes to what those strengths and weaknesses are. So you eventually weed out those weaknesses.
I agree with what Chris said, and I do believe that part 2, the business part, probably should be last for most people. Having come from that type of background, I understood it very well, and I did extremely well on that part. But I think if you start out with part 2, the business segment of it, I think it would be really easy for people to get frustrated with it and just give up, rather than, in Chris's case, he had 2 wins before he took the toughest, what's considered the toughest part. And, I just know from talking to people, through being the chair of the foundation and doing the scholarships, and just going to different, IRS tax forums, and just talking to people that are trying to become enrolled agents, that they have, they get frustrated with the business part. So there are groups out there that can help people, just like Chris and Donald are saying, just to help you study through that one segment of the exam. And the National Enrolled Association of Enrolled Agents is such a good group of network people that if you were struggling, all you'd have to do is contact any one of us, and we could probably point you in a direction or contact Meg or somebody on Meg's staff, and she could probably find somebody in that state or wherever you're located that could help you. That's what we're all about. We're a group of people that do network and help each other. You know, if Don has a question about something in Vermont or New York, he could certainly call me up and I would help him with whatever it is. No questions asked. And the same thing for Chris, or if I have a problem with Pennsylvania, I've done enough networking with Chris where I could probably call Chris on the phone and say, hey, Chris, I've got this problem in Pennsylvania. Can you walk me through it? Because even though I am pretty good at a federal standpoint, I don't do all 50 states. So, you know, there's occasions where we need help. So, you know, it's just like, you know, when you're taking the exam, utilize the network and the groups that can help you with this. Chris, you said that you were in a study group. How valuable was that study group for you?
Oh, it was great. We got together on, I don't think it was Zoom. I forget what the platform was, but we actually got together in this kind of setting, but there were tons of people on it. And we would go over questions that were on the quizzes that were stumping people, and just kind of figuring out why these things kept coming up where everyone was getting this similar questions wrong. And so that kind of prepared me for those questions coming up in the test and being like, oh yeah, we said this, you know, we might get this question, and to remember that it's tricky and to go this route with your answer. So yeah, if there is some kind of study group in addition to doing an online you know, company that helps you, if there's more of a small group of people you can network with that want to talk through things, that's really helpful. And in fact, I think they have those kinds of forums on those online study companies, because there's chats and ways that you can actually ask questions and say, I still don't understand the reasoning behind this, and people will actually get back to you. And I think that's really important, to have an actual human being talking to you about what you're confused about, instead of just having the answer in front of you, because that you still might be confusing. And then when you get the question on the test, you're not going to get it right, because you know you were confused about the why of the question when you took it in a practice test.
We have two other questions that popped up in the chat. One is asking, you know, about how long do you think each test took, just as far as planning out taking the tests? And then if you are failing part, or if you fail a part, would you advise on rescheduling or holding off on rescheduling? So it's a kind of a two-part question. And we'll start with Chris, or if you have any questions about the question, let us know.
I'm looking to see if I actually have how long it took. How long was it?
Well, while Chris is looking at that, Don, you help mentor your staff. About how long does it take to mentor your staff and get them through the exam process?
So I'll answer the second question first, and a lot of it has to depend in the past couple of years with COVID and where the testing centers are, because some of those were closed down. The sooner you can get something scheduled, the better. We found when people did delay in retaking or even just taking a test, that they would also delay studying and prepping for it. So having that scheduled out to where they can say, okay, I know I have this much time. You're going to be in a profession where you're sprinting to a deadline anyway. So it's nice to have something to shoot for and say, okay, here's my finish line. I'm all in until I get to that point and pass that test. If you fail something, my mindset always is to reschedule as soon as possible. I'm not a long-term memory person. I'm a short-term memory. And so I like to jump right back in as soon as I can. And I would say, 3 weeks is probably ideal. Anything longer than that, people tend to procrastinate the studying anyway and not, fully invest. But again, it depends on the availability of a testing center. So anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks for prep time on a test. And then I would reschedule as quick as you can, because if you didn't pass, you most likely got 60%. You just need 70% to pass. That's pretty good. That makes it, fairly low enough hurdle. Don't beat yourself up, but more of to say, great, I probably missed, just a handful. I just got to fix those and I'm good.
So to piggyback on that, the test was, the duration you're given is 4 hours, which is pretty long. And I don't think you need that close to that. They break it into 2 pieces. So you go into the testing site, the Prometric site, and they kind of wand you, and they kind of pad you down and everything, almost like it's the security is insane. They took my glasses off and they looked to see if there were any kind of recording devices on the glasses, empty your pockets, that whole thing. So, but then you sit for the first half of the test, and you get, when those questions are done, I think it was 100 questions, then you are given 15 minutes to take a break. So you go out, walk around, stretch, go to the bathroom. And you could do that during the test too, but the time is going if you do it during the test. And I think in that 15-minute break, in between the 2 sections, the 4-hour time limit is not running. So then you come back in, they wand you again and pad you down again, and you take the second half. But I would definitely suggest taking that break, even if you're like, I'm all right, I did great, I'm going to keep going. It just feels good to actually stretch and walk around and think about what you just did, and get some water, and just get ready, physically ready for sitting down for another hour. I think an hour for each half seemed to be enough time, but it's good that they give you 4 hours, because you could really sit there and think about each question if you need to with 4 hours.
We do have some more questions in the chat as well, Catherine. First question is, what positions are available in the job market for EAs? Example, can you work in a corporate accounting department, an accounting firm, a law firm, etc.? And we'll do that first question and before we ask the second one.
Okay, I'm going to let each one of the panelists answer that. But I am going to tell you, I have been talking to CPA firms, other tax preparation firms, and everybody that I've talked to is looking for people. Everybody. They say, well, we can train somebody to do the bookkeeping. We can't train somebody on tax. So like I said, everybody that I've talked to, they're all looking for people. So if you can get the EA credential, it's wide open as to whether you go into tax preparation, representation, or just go into accounting and have a credential behind your name. Don, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest problem right now is probably recruiting. Tax advisors are in the highest demand they've ever been in due to law changes over the past couple of years, whether it be stimulus or other changes. There's so many of them. Including we're on hold for things for this next year. And so things can change at any time. And there's a lot of burnout as well from people that have been in it long enough that are like, I'm too old for this now, and I can't deal with these changes. When you have a lot of changes happen in a couple of years, or in a small span versus, probably the same amount of changes in a 20-year span. You're not used to those kind of curveballs coming that quick. And so anyone who's looking to get in, now is the best time. I think 70% of this industry are retiring or aging out in the next 10 years. And we're seeing people leave the industry as well, just due to that burnout that I was talking about. And so start small and you'll work your way up pretty quick and make a good living. As far as background to come from, I'll be honest with you, having been in this industry over 20 years, someone coming with any type of customer service background is going to be better for you than even an accounting background. That's what we've seen really connect well with clients. Connecting and forming relationships quickly and understanding people is a necessary skill and kind of a lost form in today's day and age. And like I said, anybody can learn how to do taxes, but learning to connect and form good relationships is probably, those are the people that succeed the most. And being a good communicator. So whatever type of background and work experience, we've actually stopped looking for people that are wholly coming from accounting, that they don't have any other experience other than accounting, because that customer service, those relationship skills and communication are probably more important and can't be taught as well as the tax side and EA can. That's being completely honest. So if you've done that, or you can gain that experience, don't feel, it's kind of like cross training in sports. I always use sports analogies. Those that are just doing baseball, that's great, but you become a better baseball player by also focusing on basketball, football, soccer, using all your muscles that you can. Somebody who's, done those types of things and cross-trained is better than somebody who's focused on one thing, because you can now be a chameleon and relate to all sorts of people in all fields.
Chris?
As a job searcher, because I'm still in the beginning stages of this career, I will say that I have noticed on Indeed and LinkedIn more posts that say CPA, but also say, looking for someone who has CPA and EA, which I didn't see before. So that was just encouraging to see that, especially in treasury, of a company, or the tax planning of a company for industry stuff. If you're looking to go that route, I do see a lot of postings that have EA as a preferred, or would be a great thing if you had, type thing on job postings.
And Don touched on the second question that was in there, which is any insights for career changers with no industry experience who are aspiring to become EAs, and where should someone like that start? So I'll see if Chris, you have any thoughts on that, and let Don continue that, what his thoughts were as well.
Well, that's exactly what I am. I'm a musician. I play the upright bass. I'm a jazz musician. I've done that for most of my adult life, for my whole adult life. And when I got married and had 2 children, I realized that, I love playing music, and I still do it, but it's very difficult to have a decent home life when you're traveling all the time and you're not home at nights and weekends. So I wanted to do less of that. And I was trying to think what would be a good other career to get started in. And since as a self-employed musician, I had to start doing my own taxes and figuring out, what is a Schedule C? Like, what is this self-employment stuff? Like, what are these? I can do expenses. Like, trying to figure all that out kind of got me started on thinking that way. So for me, as looking for something new to do, that was the step one. I was like, I think I might be interested in this. And I took the H&R Block course because it's almost free. Like, you just paid for some kind of materials. And that was my foot in the door. From there, so I started doing that, and I realized that if I wanted to be an accountant for real, I needed to go back to school, because my my undergrad degree was in music. So I went to community college and got a certificate in accounting. And then now I'm at the University of Scranton getting a master's. I don't think I needed to necessarily go back to school that much, but I wanted to. And also because to sit for the CPA, you need 150 credit hours. And all my credit hours were in music. So I couldn't do that. So now I can. And yeah, I think there are avenues for career changers. I think a lot of tax preparers are people who are career changers, or even people who are retired from a totally other career that they still want to work, and so they get into tax prep and they find that they're good at it. And instead of just being in tax prep, they want to be an expert. So they decide to become an EA. I think it's a great thing for career changers.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. There's not really any background in particular that is, in my opinion, way better than another. Like I said, even coming from an accounting background, I wouldn't say that necessarily at this stage of my career, who we've hired, I wouldn't say that gives them necessarily a higher leg up than something else. Accounting background, in some form, is good to have. I see your stand-up bass there now, Chris.
Oh, you can see in the background.
I'll say I did have a full ride scholarship for trombone, so and had to give that up pretty quickly when I got into college. I was pretty good in jazz. My wife doesn't like me sharing this kind of stuff. I don't know. I just call it a different type of nerd, but finance background is good, business administration, but really from any background, it gives you insight. And in today's world, having a niche is a good thing to have. So if you're coming from nursing or coming from some other background that's not necessarily accounting or finance too, you're going to find people that are in that field that need help. For me particularly, I loved my business law class. That's where I fell in love with it. And as soon as I started reading the Internal Revenue Code and understanding that how that's read and how it's applied, I started to understand, instead of ripping on the government, the laws are super, super smart. They're very, very intelligent. It's interpretation and application of those laws that things get lost, and they need people like us that can interpret those and apply them correctly, right? So Chris was mentioning his background and where he came from, and he started doing his own tax return. Well, as soon as it applies to me, like we adopted all of our kids when we were building our first home, all of those things were happening while I was at the IRS. And so I was actually told by my IRS manager, you're moving too fast, you're making other people look bad. I didn't understand that government was supposed to work slow. And so I started applying my time on cases to my own situation, which was the adoption tax credit and anything having to do with homes and small businesses, because that was kind of a background I had, was self-employed before. And as soon as you start to do that, it opens your whole world into all these people. And as you grow and as your business grows and you have clients that come to you that are kind of in the same situation, you grow together. And that's where I started to go, okay, well, now we have S Corps and partnerships and we can form those things together. And it's creating your own little community of relationships that you enjoy. And the best advice I could probably give today is don't say yes to everybody. And don't say yes to every question. If you're afraid that you won't pick up a client because you're not going to say yes to a deduction they're going to take, or them being super aggressive or egregious, again, know your boundaries. They're not here. The boundaries are actually out here. So it gives you a bigger realm to work within. But I got a lot more respect, and I give this credit to my IRS background, by saying no to people than I ever would have by saying yes to everything they asked. And a lot of them said, well, I won't come to you if you're not going to do this for me. And I said, great, that's fine. And by doing that, then I have clients that work within my processes, not just the IRS's, but my own processes. And that's been very key for me to be happy in my longevity and being in this industry for over 20 years.
Don, I think you could actually give a course on boundaries, because that's really hard in this industry. And that's one of the reasons that we're seeing the burnout rate over the last couple of years that we've seen, is because people don't set those boundaries for themselves, and they don't always say no. And we as in this industry have had so many changes thrown at us last 2 years in particular, that it's really hard to stay on top of all those changes. So you do have to set those boundaries and tell people no. And you can't please everybody all the time, and you are going to have people walk away because you don't do it the way they want you to do it. But I need to be able to sleep at night and know that I've done the right thing.
Yeah, and it's not just the tax laws too. The people who are successful have a process within the process, right? As soon as you walk into a meeting, you want to know, okay, how should I act? What's everybody doing? Or as soon as you start working in a job, you want to know what's the right way to do it. And then you form your own processes within those processes. And with so many clients, as you get bigger, if you don't follow those processes or they don't adhere to yours, you start to have too many offshoots. Like you're saying, you get burned out. You're tugged and pulled from so many directions. It's not just the laws that we're talking about. It's, do we meet in person? People send by email, by text, by all these different forms, and you go, nope, this is the way I'm going to operate within. And if they adhere to those ways you do it, that's a lot easier than having 5 different ways that they send you stuff. And so it's not just the laws, but you're right. The burnout happens because there's just too many things to keep track of. And narrowing those down really assists you, and it assists the client.
So we have 2 questions that are similar in the chat box. So I'm going to kind of combine them into one. So if someone is recently retired, as an example, is an EA a part-time job, or could it be a part-time job? And then do most EAs that you see, really work heavily during tax season? Or do you see some that do tax season as well as year-round bookkeeping or accounting or what have you? So if you could touch on kind of those questions and thoughts about what you see, that would be helpful.
I can speak for myself that I have a year-round practice that not only do I do accounting and bookkeeping work for business clients, we also do a payroll processing service, so that we have some pretty steady year-round work. I will tell you that it is really intense from about mid-January to April 15th. And again, as Don alluded, we have to have those boundaries and try to schedule regular events or time off. But I have a year-round practice. Don?
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was just during those certain months. Then I brought on a partner. I'm not a huge fan of accounting and payroll. And I said, hey, in order for us to survive, one of us has to do that. It's not me. So we turned it into a year-round practice that way. It just depends on what you want to do. And you can dictate that amount of time. It doesn't take long to build it up. But if you wanted just to have something that was seasonal and the rest of the year take off, you could make a good living for yourself and really only work 3 months out of the year. And I would say, depending on it, today you can charge much more, but software is key. So don't scrimp on the cost of what you're using for software and things you're employing. Part of our processes that we've put in to really help is having a bunch of automated things that are in place of people. And so whether it's our payment process, signature process, onboarding, or a portal for people to upload documents or receive documents, that's made it to where I've gone from working, as we've grown, from working 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. To I'm at 7:30 to 7 o'clock during the busiest time. And again, those boundaries I've set for myself are, I've chosen not to see my family in the morning because I want to see them in the evening. And I want to be home by 7:30 to spend a couple hours with them. So it shouldn't be at the sacrifice of family for those 3 months. I know some people do that. And I've done a little bit of that in the past myself and realized that's no way to live. It hasn't changed. In fact, my income has gone up as I've employed those automated processes and spent more time with my family, because less burnout. I'm rejuvenated when I see my family and I'm doing things. Some of my hobbies might go away for a couple of months, but yeah, if you wanted to do accounting and those other things, that creates some year-round work, but it can evolve from part-time into full-time depending on how good you are at it. Word of mouth is the quickest way to grow a business. So if you're good at it and people like you, I tell everyone accountants are a dime a dozen. So it's a matter of finding somebody you relate to and connect with and sticking with that person 30 to 40 years rather than hopping around and trying to price shop and things like that.
And as for me, I'm looking for that balance too. I know that I could just do taxes now because I've learned so much about it and just go full on for that for the tax season and then figure out something else during the other months. But I'm also thinking that if I have my accounting job that's year round and then also do taxes when tax season comes, I think that might be a nice balance for me. So that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, my wife and I, we go on a trip, just the two of us. My kids know this and they expect it after tax season every year. And then we do a big family trip each year too. And the nice thing about taxes is I might miss the final four. I've actually been to one in person. And that's tough during March Madness because basketball is my thing. But the rest of the year, when it's high season, when other people are traveling, I can travel then, or I can also travel in the fall when it's down season. And we've done a lot of traveling over the years.
So the questions are still coming into the chat. So we do only have 10 minutes and I see 2 questions. So hopefully we have time to get to them. The first question that I see is, after you became an EA, what changes did you see in your clientele? This person started their tax preparation business back in 2021 and is considering becoming an EA and is just curious kind of what changes in clientele did you see after that? Chris, you're brand new, so you might not be able to answer it, but wanted to put that out there.
Well, I can say that soon as I hung this enrolled agent sign up in my H&R Block office, the manager started throwing all of the small business clients at me, all the people who have rental income, just the harder stuff. Like, oh, Chris can do it. He's an EA now. Just give it to him. So, that's harder stuff, but it also pays better.
Right. What Chris is saying is right. It's among your peers that probably there's more respect than with clients because clients don't know what an EA is. In fact, clients think that CPA is anybody in the industry of accounting and tax and finance. So I think everybody who is an EA here would agree you get called CPA whether you are one or not.
Yes.
So it's more among your peers and other professionals that you start to see that recognition. And that's good. That's a confidence thing. That's a huge one.
I agree 110% on that one. Going through the process of becoming an EA and studying for all that really, I think, sharpened my skills for what I was doing as far as tax preparation went. And I think it made me more confident to the clients so that it was the clients that I got were better too. And I did get the harder stuff. Because I do a lot of business returns. So yeah, and as you say, it does pay more money. Absolutely.
The next question I see in the chat box is asking about tax controversy. And I'm not sure if any of you have much experience or have done it, but how much do you think an EA or how much EA experience would you recommend before taking on any controversy cases?
So first of all, I think instead of calling it tax controversy, we ought to call it tax resolution. But I think most people or most enrolled agents do some tax resolution. You know, when your client gets that CP 2000 notice or what have you, and they bring it to you and you know, you have to write a letter or you call the IRS and try to figure out what's going on with it. So I think most enrolled agents toe dip into the resolution side of things. I have done full-blown IRS audits. I have done everything up to going to tax court because I'm not a US TCP, which is a US tax court practitioner. That's a whole separate exam that I have not taken. So, you know, I can do resolution, I can go to appeals. I don't do it with the frequency that a larger firm might, but you know, and maybe Don can speak to his firm and what they do with that. But I think if you don't do more than CP 2000s, there's a lot of people that are enrolled agents that specialize in the resolution that can you can either refer it out to them or they will help you learn how to do it. And NAEA has an NTPI class that will actually teach you how to do resolution, because I am an NTPI fellow and it is a very good program. Don, how about you?
Well, I can't, the hard part is I was a former IRS agent before I was an EA. And so that's one where I spent, you know, 2.5 years doing audits on the other side. So I've done plenty of it and it's kind of second nature to me. As far as doing that as an EA, I would say, obviously part 3 of the exam is going to help you with that, knowing your rights, your client's rights, deadlines, certain processes, all of that is just getting familiar with things. And so I would say it's much like having a niche of doing dental practices as clients or having professional athletes as a client or whatever it is, the field that you want to focus on as your strength, if that's something you're doing. And so this is just another niche that you can hang your hat on and represent people for. It's not necessarily a qualification thing. It's like learning another language. And as soon as you get proficient in it, then you're good at it and people will come to you for that. It's not always high reward, I would say. I just always tell people, trust the process. I know it's the IRS, but eventually you find the right person to deal with. And that's the idea, is knowing at the end of it somewhere, 90% of the time you're going to find, you know, the right thing. And sometimes it surprises you, but the IRS is a pendulum. It's like the rest of the government. It swings different ways and it depends on the mentality of the location where you do your audits. If it's automated, that's going to be different. It's by correspondence. But if it's in person, it may be an office full of people who just complain about the general public all day long. And so you're up against a really tough group of people. So it just depends, but it is a niche. I say go for it. That's good.
We have time for,
I'm sorry, I was just going to say I've only done some very few letters in response. So I've kind of dipped my toe in the tax resolution world.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
we have time for one more question. And one, of course, just popped up perfectly timed in the chat box, which is, and I'd like for you all to speak on this as well as what you see other EAs doing, which is, do you have a podcast, YouTube channel, Instagram, or any form of social media that you're really using to promote yourself and your skill set as an EA, as well as tax advice? And then the second part of that question is about mentorship and what recommendations you have for someone who's a new EA to learn more and get a mentor.
That is an awesome question. And that shows some forward thinking. I would I don't personally do that. I have enough people coming in just by word of mouth. But I do see a lot of that. I'm part of Tax Twitter. So if you go to hashtag Tax Twitter, it's an awesome community of more than 50,000 tax professionals or at least that follow that Tax Twitter hashtag. And there's some really high, well-respected people on there that give really good advice. It's a good sounding board too. And there's some anecdotes on there that are helpful as well to kind of help you get through things, especially if you're going about it by yourself. But I would recommend, if you get along well with other people, either bringing on a partner or somebody that you can mentor as quick as possible with what you're doing, because then you're assisting each other. You have somebody at your level or close to it you can talk about things with. That's a good way to go about things. I didn't really take off, and I knew my stuff as a former IRS agent, but I didn't really take off until I brought on a partner. And I know partnerships don't always work out, but 14 years later, we're still doing well. So it works like a marriage. It's give and take, and it's hard to have somebody have more than another. And so we've gone equal on everything from the very start.
I can only say that as someone who's starting out, if you show people who have more experience than you that you're taking this seriously, it's not too hard to find good mentors that are happy to help you and teach you, because they see that, oh yeah, if I'm not wasting my time explaining this to this guy and he's just going to forget it again next week. Yeah, as long as you show that you're really trying to get a handle on things, I think it's good, and it's easy to find a good mentor, and both people get something good out of it, the person helping you and you who's being helped.
Yeah, I like what Chris says. Don't rely just on software. I think a lot of people do that. And they think, well, and they get by on just doing that, and you could probably do okay because there's audit features within software. Knowing where to look is better than knowing or thinking you know everything, relying on just your own knowledge. If you know where to find the answer, that's better than knowing the answer itself. Sometimes there's an exception to everything.
Absolutely. I have to say that there are things that I follow on Twitter and on Facebook as far as feeds go, like Donald was suggesting. I don't do any social media myself to promote myself because my business all comes word of mouth. So I don't need to do that. As far as mentorship goes, my biggest recommendation to you is join NAEA. And I joined NAEA. I was immediately embraced by somebody in the local society, and they really encouraged me to get involved. And I've had a really great run with NAEA in the time that I've been a member. I've been on various committees. I've done various things, but people are always willing to help. And contact Meg. She'll hook you up with somebody local that will be able to be a mentor to you. If feel free to reach out to me. I am more than happy to help, and I probably might know somebody in your geographical area that can help. Not any of us here. We know people because we've spent the time networking and gotten a lot out of it. So, join the organization and make a connection. That would be my biggest recommendation.
Agreed.
Well, Catherine, thank you for the big referral for NAEA. I would agree with you that it's a really exceptional community of professionals and are always willing to help each other. So I did put my email in the chat if anybody is looking for a mentor or would like to know more information about NAEA membership or taking the exam, or how you can access some of the benefits that we're offering to members to help you prepare for the exam. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to connect with you. and give you more information or connect you with another professional who can help you. So we really appreciate your time today, our panelists. You did such a great job, so much good information. And hopefully you all got a lot out of this and understand more about all the opportunities there are in the enrolled agent career. And we'll be posting this on our YouTube page if you want to watch it again or want to pass it along to others who might find this interesting. And just thanks for attending and good luck with your career. And thank you again to our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.